There are moments in life where you run out of options. No plan, no solution, no way forward, and behind you everything is closing in. That's where they were. You know that feeling when you don't see a way out. Not a small problem, not something you can fix with time, something bigger, something that surrounds you. You look ahead and there's nothing. You look behind and it's worse. Pressure, fear, urgency, and no clear answer. That's where they are, standing at the edge of the sea. Thousands of people, families, children, elderly, all moving together, all hoping for freedom after years of slavery, years of oppression, years of waking up with no control over their own lives. And now they're finally free. At least that's what they thought, because freedom felt real for a moment, walking out of Egypt, leaving everything behind, believing this was the beginning of something new, something better. But now they're here, stopped. The sea in front of them, wide, endless, impossible to cross. And then someone notices something. Dust in the distance, movement, fast, growing closer. And suddenly the realization spreads. Egypt is coming, chariots, horses, soldiers. The same power they just escaped is chasing them. And now everything changes. Fear spreads quickly. Voices rise, panic grows, because now it feels like this was all a mistake. Why did we leave? Why did we come here? It would have been better to stay, because when fear takes over, even freedom can feel wrong. They turned to Moses, angry, desperate. Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us here to die? Harsh, raw, honest. Because fear doesn't sound polite, it sounds like this. They look at the sea, then at the army, and they realize something. There is no way out, no escape, no plan, just waiting for what comes next. And maybe you felt that. A moment where you don't know what to do, where every option feels closed, where everything feels stuck, and the pressure keeps rising. Moses stands there, not calm because the situation is easy, but because he knows something they don't. He says, "Do not be afraid." Hard to believe in that moment, hard to accept. Stand firm, even harder, because everything inside them is telling them to run, to panic, to do something. And then he says something that doesn't make sense. You will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. How? There's a sea in front of them, an army behind them. There is no visible solution. And that's the point. Because sometimes the answer doesn't exist yet, at least not where you can see it. The people stand there, still afraid, still unsure, still waiting. Then God speaks, not to the crowd, to Moses. Why are you crying out to me? Tell the people to move forward. Forward. Into what? Into the sea. But then comes the instruction, raise your staff. Moses lifts it, simple action, but full of trust. And then something happens. The wind begins to move, not suddenly, not violently, steady, strong, persistent. The water shifts. At first barely noticeable, then more. The surface begins to part. The sea starts to open, slowly, powerfully, until something impossible becomes visible. A path, dry ground, where there was only water, walls of water on both sides. Standing, held back, not by force, but by command. The people watch in silence, in shock. Because this changes everything. There is a way. There was always a way, they just couldn't see it before. Moses looks forward, steps into it, and the people follow, carefully, cautiously. Then with more confidence, walking through what once blocked them. What once stopped them now becomes the path forward. And maybe that's the part that speaks to you, because sometimes your biggest obstacle becomes the way through. They walk, step by step, between walls of water, the sound of wind around them, the ground firm beneath their feet. And behind them the army still comes, chariots entering the same path, trying to follow, trying to catch up, because pressure doesn't disappear immediately. It follows, it pushes, it tries to keep control, but the people keep moving, forward, not back, forward. Even when it feels uncertain, even when it feels unreal, they reach the other side, safe, out, free, and then everything shifts again. The waters return, the path disappears, the threat is gone, not slowly, completely. And in that moment they understand something. What felt like the end was never the end. What looked impossible was never beyond God. The problem wasn't the sea. It was what they believed when they saw it. Because they saw an obstacle. God saw an opportunity. They saw no way. God was already making one. And maybe that's where you are, standing in front of something that feels impossible. No solution, no clear direction, no visible path. But this moment reminds you of something. Just because you can't see a way doesn't mean one doesn't exist. Because God doesn't need a path. He creates one. Not always early. Not always the way you expect. But always in time. And when He does, what once stopped you becomes what moves you forward. Because in the end, the sea didn't stop them. And whatever you're facing won't define your story either.